Hello, everyone, and welcome. Some of the stories we have for you right now. A somber anniversary and a stark warning as the world remembers the horrors of the Holocaust.
If you don't do anything about it, it's going to repeat itself, which we are witnessing now.
The plea from survivors as leaders and dignitaries gather to pay their respects.
AI is becoming cheaper, it is becoming better.
Battle of the bots, why a Chinese AI startup is sparking turmoil in the tech market.
There are problems with the recommendations.
Why doctors are criticizing a new pandemic report advising a halt to COVID shots.
This is a soccer nation, that we can create real momentum and a movement.
Plus, Team Canada's ultimate goal as this country prepares to host the World Cup.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
There are fewer and fewer of them alive today, survivors of the Holocaust. 6 million Jews murdered, more than 1 million alone rounded up like cattle, starved, beaten, and gassed in Auschwitz-Birkenau, the notorious Nazi extermination camp in Poland, along with other groups deemed undesirable. It was 80 years ago today that Allied troops liberated the camp and saw the horrors with their own eyes. Today, prime ministers, presidents, and kings took part in commemorative events along with some Canadian survivors. CTV's Colton Prale attended the memorial and heard the first-hand accounts of the mass killing. Colton.
80 years ago, the Soviet Red Army pushed through the gates of Auschwitz-Birkenau, liberating thousands of prisoners and unmasking one of the greatest atrocities ever committed. 8 decades later, some of the few survivors returned, laying candles at the base of a train car near the gates of the concentration camp.
We were helpless. We were abandoned. Nobody to complain to about our lot, and nobody, or hardly anybody, helped.
Today, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and world leaders joined survivors as they returned to the same grounds where an estimated 1.1 million people were killed, the overwhelming majority of them Jewish, including Miriam Ziegler's entire family.
I have the most horrible nightmares since October, and I was told I was coming here. I don't think I slept one night.
But Ziegler says their stories matter now more than ever, as high-profile anti-Semitic incidents spike in Canada and around the world.
If you don't do anything about it, it's going to repeat itself, which we are witnessing now, what happened with the hate and the spewing of it. Auschwitz didn't come down from the sky. It started with words, and it ends with the chimney being burned and going out in the smoke.
That message repeated by the Prime Minister, where global instability was a focus in a meeting between Trudeau and Polish President Andrzej Duda earlier in the day.
It's not just about the past, it's about the present and the future as well. The responsibility to remember and to say never again.
Today, the Prime Minister announced $3.4 million in new funding to combat anti-Semitism and preserve Holocaust remembrance, committing to the idea of never again. Sandy?
CTV's Colton Prale in Poland. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre today spoke out against anti-Semitism in Canada and abroad.
We know the Jewish people will prevail. We know the state of Israel will live on. We as Canadians must live on as allies and friends so that when we say never again, we mean it.
Poilievre was speaking at a Holocaust memorial ceremony in Ottawa. The call for never again highlights growing fears of a rising tide of anti-Semitism in Canada and around the world, fears that history might repeat itself. October the 7th was the biggest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, and since then, an explosion of hate crimes. In 2023, Ottawa police reported a 19% increase with Jewish and LGBTQ2+ communities most victimized. In 2024, police in Toronto said the city had seen a 93% increase in reported hate crimes since the Israel-Hamas war, specifically targeting Jewish people, followed by LGBTQ2+, Black, and Arab Muslim Palestinian communities. CTV's Andrew Johnson has been speaking to organizations about what to do about hate. Andrew.
Sandy, that explosion of hate crimes since the October 7th attack has led to a rise in anti-Semitism in Canada. Jewish organizations say they haven't seen in generations. One group believes the key to reversing it is earlier education. It's been called a period of crisis, the war in Israel and Gaza being used to justify the targeting of Jews in Canada. And now a Leger survey commissioned by the Association of Canadian Studies is indicating many young Canadians have doubts about the Holocaust. The poll conducted last spring shows 18% of 18 to 24-year-olds agreed with the statement, "I think the Holocaust was exaggerated." Among Canadians a bit older, between 25 and 34, the number is 15%, an increase over previous polls. A Holocaust Education Society in Toronto says the key to reversing anti-Semitism is starting age-appropriate Holocaust education sooner, in grade 6. Their data shows that can fight hate across the board.
After learning about the Holocaust, the kids were much more likely to challenge another child in their school who was either drawing a swastika on the wall of a bathroom or who was bullying a Muslim kid in the playground.
She says 66% of Ontario grade 6 students, when surveyed, said they believe Jewish people experience anti-Semitism. Right now, the nonprofit says only Ontario is educating kids about the Holocaust as early as grade 6, and they'd like to see funding and resources to expand that program right across the country. Sandy.
CTV's Andrew Johnson. If you want to read more about today's commemorative events at Auschwitz-Birkenau and read the testimonies of survivors, go to ctvnews.ca. Well, a powerful new Chinese AI tool is sending a sonic boom across financial markets. The Nasdaq went into free fall, as did stock prices of major tech companies. The app is called DeepSeek, and the company is boasting it was really inexpensive to develop. CTV's Adrian Gabriel on the AI app that's already surpassed ChatGPT in downloads.
The next generation of artificial intelligence has sent a very real shockwave through the stock markets.
All the assumptions that we've made about how Americans are leading the AI charge have just been blown up by this one single company, this one single product.
Enter DeepSeek, a Chinese AI startup that was just founded in 2023, which has suddenly taken over the #1 spot on the free AI Apple App Store in the United States, beating out ChatGPT. DeepSeek's popularity has skyrocketed since it was released a month ago and has only grown after launching a free assistant last week. The company claims to be powered by an open-source model that its researchers say was developed for only $6 million. If accurate, that's significantly less than the billions being spent by rival AI platforms, raising questions about the future of America's AI dominance and the scale of investments seen in the United States from multiple firms. The result has been a major hit to the markets, especially to the tech-heavy Nasdaq.
You fear disruption, right? When a disruptor enters a space, it becomes very troublesome for the standing players.
Last week, OpenAI joined a group of other firms who pledged to invest $500 billion in building AI infrastructure in the U.S.
All of that economic theory has now been turned on its ear because now someone can do it for a fraction of the price.
Some are now describing this as AI's Sputnik moment, a reference to the satellite launched by the Soviet Union in 1957 that caught the U.S. off guard. Though it remains to be seen whether data privacy concerns similar to TikTok will ground China's DeepSeek just as it's beginning to lift off. Adrian Gabriel, CTV News, Toronto.
Well, Donald Trump's directives are coming out of the gate faster than most of us can follow. Today, he's talking about reshaping the military. The U.S. president's border czar has also said that arrests of undocumented migrants will ramp up. Colombia at first refused to accept U.S. deportation flights, but backed down after Trump threatened a 25% tariff. Let's bring in CTV's political commentator Eric Ham in Washington. All right, Eric, a crisis averted for Colombia, it appears. Trump is using the tariff threat with any country that doesn't agree with his plans, right?
Yeah, that's right. In fact, what we are seeing here is the stark contrast. Going back to 2020, there have been 475 deportation flights to Colombia, 124 just in 2024. In fact, Colombia ranked 5th in the country that received the most deportations of illegal immigrants into into their country from the United States, all without a trade war. And so I think what we're seeing here, this is just another sign that Donald Trump is prepared to go to war with the rest of the world.
That being the case, Canada is facing February the 1st. It's coming up faster than we can say February the 1st. What can we glean from what happened with Colombia as far as proposed tariffs are concerned?
I do believe this crisis, too, will be averted, because if we look at the real and raw numbers, the deficit is only around $40 billion, not the 200 and 250 billion that Donald Trump claims. And if you actually take out those oil exports, the United States actually has a surplus with Canada. And so I do believe, based on those numbers, Donald Trump will walk back from this ledge. And I think this crisis, too, much like Colombia, will be averted.
All right, from your mouth, Eric, to Donald Trump's ears. Thanks, Eric. More reaction today to the U.S. president's suggestion that Egypt and Jordan should take in large numbers of Palestinians from Gaza. Officials in both countries rejected the idea. Jordan's foreign minister reiterated calls for a two-state solution. Egypt's parliament speaker called Trump's idea a threat to Palestinians and regional security. And in Gaza today, tens of thousands of Palestinians streamed into the north for the first time since the early weeks of the war. Huge crowds walked with their belongings in hand along a coastal road after spending months sheltering in tent camps and schools turned shelters. Many will be returning to homes that have been damaged or completely destroyed in the hardest hit area of the Gaza Strip. The corridor opened this morning after a deal was reached with Hamas to release more hostages. Israel confirms it has been given a list by Hamas that details which hostages are alive and which are dead.
The list from Hamas matches Israel's intelligence. So I can share with you that 25 of our hostages are alive and 8 have been killed by Hamas.
The plan calls for 33 hostages to be released in the first phase of the ceasefire. Relatives of the hostages rallied over the weekend, calling on the Israeli government to keep the ceasefire deal and avoid returning to war. And thousands have fled the fighting in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where Rwandan-backed rebels claim to have captured a city of 2 million people. The sound of gunfire could be heard from the airport in Goma as dozens of Congolese soldiers fled to a Rwandan border town, surrendering their weapons. The UN described mass panic among residents, many of whom also fled to Rwanda for safety. It's a major escalation in a decades-long fight over control of the region's valuable minerals. Coming up after the break, barred from running in the race to replace Justin Trudeau.
I'm running to be the next Prime Minister of Canada.
Growing questions over why a Liberal MP was ousted from the contest. Plus, time for a multi-million-dollar fine over Fitbit's watch turned burn hazard. Liberal leadership candidate Chrystia Freeland is calling for a Buy Canada response and retaliation when it comes to Donald Trump's threat of 25% tariffs on Canadian goods. The former finance minister says Donald Trump is using uncertainty to unsettle Canadians, and we must do the same. Freeland called for a list of retaliatory tariffs worth $200 billion and a plan to match any U.S. tariffs dollar for dollar. Now, questions are swirling around the removal of Ottawa MP Chandra Arya from the Liberal leadership race. Arya has been informed that he's been disqualified, but says he hasn't been told why. CTV's Judy Trin takes a deeper dive into what may be behind the decision to bar him. Judy.
Sandy, Chandra Arya was the first candidate to enter the race, but in the past he has courted controversy because of his ties to the Indian government.
I'm running to be the next Prime Minister of Canada.
Ottawa MP Chandra Arya has been ejected from the Liberal leadership race. He had submitted the $50,000 deposit fee and gathered more than 1,000 signatures of endorsement. Arya said his removal raises significant questions about the legitimacy of the leadership race and, by extension, the legitimacy of the next Prime Minister of Canada. Arya was running on a platform of smaller government, but does not speak French. The foreign minister says he's unqualified to be leader.
I expect the leader of the Liberal Party of Canada to be fully bilingual, because we are in a bilingual country. We are the party of official bilingualism, and it is at the core of our DNA.
According to the Liberal Party constitution, the board can remove candidates with sole, unfettered discretion due to public statements, past improper conduct, and a lack of commitment to democracy. The public safety minister was asked if foreign interference was a factor.
That question's better put to the Liberal Party of Canada, its executive and its executive director.
Just last year, Arya traveled to India to meet with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on his own, at a time when the government had accused the Modi government of being involved in the killing of a Sikh activist. Arya's removal is seen as an opportunity for another candidate in the race.
We need your vote and your support to elect and to make history for the very first time and have the first Canadian Prime Minister from the South Asian and Indo-Canadian community.
Arya has not responded to requests for more information about what the party told him about the reason why he was removed. Sandy.
All right, CTV's Judy Trin. Still ahead, Alberta's new COVID controversy. The provincial report criticized as anti-science. Police in Edmonton are investigating after a Jeep crashed into a house around 5 a.m. this morning. The driver was found unconscious behind the wheel and was checked for minor injuries. The house sustained some damage. Police are investigating whether alcohol and speed were factors in the crash. Well, nearly 5 years since the start of the pandemic, and COVID-19 is still able to stir up controversy. A task force in Alberta quietly released a new report recommending the halt of vaccines. It also criticized the use of lockdowns and questioned mask mandates. CTV's Kathy Lee has more now on the report and the backlash. And Kathy, what are doctors saying?
Sandy, the doctors and infectious disease experts CTV News spoke to say this report presents a very focused and incomplete version of many facts. The $2 million report was commissioned by Premier Danielle Smith and is meant to offer recommendations to the government. A task force, including healthcare professionals, academics, researchers, and advisors, were part of this report. Some of their recommendations include the government immediately stop the use of COVID-19 vaccines without full disclosure of potential risks, Alberta refrain from future mask mandates for respiratory illnesses, and the report criticizes the use of lockdowns to control the spread of the disease.
There's a lack of objectivity. These are not people who are being objective about the situation, trying to give the best advice that the Alberta government and Albertans should be following.
Experts say there is concern about the influence of a report such as this, not just in Alberta, but across the country.
So we have to have faith that vaccines work. Vaccines have changed civilization over the past 2 generations. It's problematic to me that as many as 35% of parents in Canada may no longer believe in vaccination for their children.
Social isolation and masking, obviously if you're sick, staying away from public, and then, development of vaccines. All these things we're going to need in the future at some time, and we need to make sure that the public will listen to science.
The province says it will review and consider the report and its findings, but no policy decisions have been made yet. Sandy.
Kathy Lee, thank you. Google's Fitbit has been fined more than $12 million US after failing to report a defect that could cause burns. The brand's iconic smartwatches were recalled in Canada and the US in 2022. There were complaints they overheated, along with 78 reported burn injuries. The US recall notice said there were 2 reports of third-degree burns and 4 of second-degree burns. More than 70,000 of the watches were sold in Canada and about 1 million in the US. After the break, kicking off a World Cup countdown. 500 days and counting, Canada prepares to host and crush the competition. The teams that will play in the Super Bowl are now set, with one of them trying to make history.
Mahomes still has it. To the 5, and in for the touchdown.
Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Buffalo Bills last night and will now try and win their third Super Bowl in a row, which has never been done before. This also means that Taylor Swift might be at the big game. She was there last night cheering on boyfriend and Chiefs player Travis Kelce. So today marks 500 days until Canada co-hosts the biggest soccer tournament in the world. Both Toronto and Vancouver will be host cities to the FIFA World Cup. And the head coach of Canada's men's team is making a bold prediction that Canada won't only win its first ever match, but accomplish a lot more. CTV's Kamal Karamali sat down with Jesse Marsh.
I've learned the more I've traveled throughout the country, the more I've seen the amount of passion that's involved in the sport and the amount of people that are dedicated to helping the sport grow, and the talent pool of players in this country, including the players within our team, the more I realize that this is a soccer nation. And I feel a big sense of responsibility to make sure that I honor this role in the best way possible, to not just help the national team, but help the sport grow, to help unify all the spheres of influence, to make sure that we can create real momentum and a movement inside the country that can lead to building something really special. One of the keys is not just that we have a good starting 11, but that we build out an entire squad of 26 players. And so along with making sure that we're performing at the highest level, it's about also continuing to develop the depth in the team so that we can call on everybody come 2026.
Looking forward, you have a pretty busy 2025 scheduled. You have the Nations League and the Gold Cup. How crucial are those tournaments going to be in getting ready for the World Cup?
I think we have now 7 windows together. That's it. So 500 days is scary, but only 7 opportunities to be together. So we have to really maximize potential of every moment. And then, yeah, there's 2 competitive tournaments, but we're also scheduling really good opponents.
I'm going to ask you for a bit of a bold prediction. How far does Canada go, and who wins the World Cup title?
We are going to make some waves in the World Cup. You know, we have a team that has belief, that has talent, and is ready to perform at the highest level. And we've already shown that in the short time that I've been here.
Can you guarantee our audience a win right now?
Yeah, I think we'll get a win, but that's not our goal. Like, our goal is to get out of the group and win some matches, right? And so I'm not afraid to say that. Like, the team knows that, and they have the belief to do so.
All right, fingers crossed on that one. Thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. Omar is here later tonight. Your local CTV News is coming up, and we'll see you again tomorrow, we hope. Bye for now.